The story begins with our protagonist, Han Byum-sang, searching for a job and being asked about the philosophy of his life by the interviewer. Byum-sang is in an interview for Kim & Kong, the #1 law firm in Korea, feeling pressured by the question about his personal motto. One of the judges looks at him skeptically, as if wondering what kind of principle a candidate with his seemingly ordinary background could have. With palpable tension, Byum-sang clenches his hand on his pants, gathering the courage to give an answer that will define his future. Then, with newfound conviction, he lifts his gaze and firmly declares that yes, he has a motto that guides his life. He confidently explains his creed: when one door closes, another opens, because what is left behind leads you toward what lies ahead. And that, friends, is not just an empty phrase to sound good in a high-level interview. It is the maxim by which Byum-sang has lived and faced the adversities of his life. He has applied this philosophy even in the darkest moments, such as when his father mysteriously disappeared, or when another door slammed shut the day his mother suffered a serious accident. Recalling his motto, he remembers how one door painfully closed with his mother's accident. That suffering was proof that his life philosophy was born not from comfort, but from the harshest adversity. However, true to his creed, Byum-sang believes that his grandfather's secret space also opened in a similar way, as a new opportunity. Back in the room, the judges remain in profound silence, clearly impacted by the honesty of his response. Our protagonist waits with his head bowed, having revealed both his vulnerability and his strength through his story. The tension is palpable as the interviewers reflect, seeming to reach a decision that could change everything for the young man. Suddenly, the sound of a red pen on paper breaks the silence, marking the final verdict. With a determined gesture, the lead interviewer informs him that he has been accepted and can start next week. The news strikes Byum-sang like a bolt of happiness, leaving him in a state of shock and absolute euphoria. With an outburst of gratitude and emotion, he thanks profusely, unable to believe that his life is about to change. And this time, as always, our protagonist prepares to cross the threshold into a new stage. With an expression of confidence, he opens the door that will lead him to a future completely different from the one he knew. A new door has opened for him, marking the beginning of his career at the prestigious Kim & Kong law firm. The first thing he does is go see his friend to share the news, who reacts with utter disbelief and amazement. Byum-sang confirms, still barely able to believe it, that he has been accepted at Korea's #1 law firm. After the congratulations, our protagonist reminds his friend that he has come to pick up a special request. Without wasting time, his friend searches his shop for what Byum-sang had asked for in advance. After rummaging for a moment, he pulls out the mysterious object he had been keeping for him. The request is none other than a brilliant gold ingot, which his friend immediately hands over to him. Intrigued, his friend asks why he has been buying so much gold lately, unaware of the true purpose behind these purchases. With a mysterious smile, Byum-sang decides not to reveal the real reason for his purchase to his friend. Holding the gold, he simply says he has his reasons, leaving his friend curious. After the enigmatic response, our protagonist says goodbye and leaves the shop with the ingot in hand. On the way home, he contemplates the gold, knowing this is the toll he must pay to use his secret ability. The journey back home is a strenuous climb up a very long staircase. He lives in an isolated house atop a hill, about a tiring 30-minute walk from the subway station. The physical effort of climbing every day is so great that he always arrives home sweaty and breathless. That long and steep staircase has been part of his life for the past 30 years. For that very reason, he had often thought about selling the house and moving to a much more convenient place. But now things are different, because that house hides a secret that has made it the most valuable place in the world to him. With renewed determination, Byum-sang reaffirms his decision never to sell the house that now holds his greatest secret. He opens the door to his home, eager to share the news he knows will bring immense joy to his mother. Upon entering, he greets his mother, who is in the kitchen preparing dinner as usual. She welcomes him with a warm smile, offering him food and showing her maternal affection. He tells her he has already eaten, to which she responds with curiosity, asking why he didn't eat with his friend. Then, with a mysterious smile, Byum-sang decides it's time to give her the big news. Overflowing with happiness, he announces that he has been hired by Kim & Kong and will start working next week. His mother's purse drops to the floor from the impact of the news, completely stunned by the surprise. Her face shows total disbelief, unable to process that her son has secured a job at the most prestigious firm in the country. Coming out of her astonishment, she grabs him excitedly and bombards him with questions, euphoric and proud of her son's incredible achievement. To calm his mother, Sang tells her he simply applied for fun and never expected to be called. His mother, crying tears of pure happiness, tells him how proud she is and regrets not having known earlier to prepare him a good breakfast. Seeing his mother's overwhelming joy deeply moves our protagonist to the core of his heart. But the truth is that, while sharing this happy moment, he himself has no idea why he was hired. Honestly, he doesn't know how he managed to pass the interview with his poor qualifications. His academic record is quite poor, since to begin with, he didn't even finish high school. And to top it off, he graduated from a local law university with no prestige. With a profile like his, he knows perfectly well he should have been eliminated in the first round of selection. However, feeling his mother's support, all those doubts and insecurities begin to fade away. At that moment, he makes a firm resolution. No matter how he got in, he will give his best effort just to see his mother that happy. With a proud smile, his mother tells him she will take care of washing his shirts so he looks perfect at his new job. His mother's happiness becomes his greatest motivation, promising himself to give everything in this new phase. He knows that all the effort will be worthwhile just to be able to see his mother that happy and proud. Shortly after, it is she who says goodbye to go to her own job, leaving Sang alone at home. Our protagonist says goodbye with a kind smile, concealing the true intensity of his plans. But as soon as his mother leaves, his face completely changes, revealing a cold and determined gaze. He takes out the gold ingot and wonders if he should go to that place right at this moment. Making a decision, he heads to the attic of the house, a space that used to be his father's study. With unwavering determination, he crosses the threshold of the room that now belongs to him. This attic study, personally built by his father, is the place where his incredible secret is hidden. 3 months ago, our protagonist discovered the great secret this room held by moving a bookshelf. Behind it, an old safe was concealed that, at first glance, appeared completely empty and worthless. But as you might imagine, that safe is much more than just a simple metal container. Now, holding the gold ingot, he realizes that the key to unveiling the mystery was closer than he thought. Resolutely, he approaches the safe and places the gold ingot inside. He knows that this simple act of depositing gold is the catalyst that will activate the true power of the room. The moment the gold goes in, a flash of golden light emanates from the box, filling the room with its glow. Sang's face lights up with the magical light as he watches the phenomenon unfold with amazement. Before his eyes, a radiant door begins to materialize out of nowhere, right where the wall used to be. That door is the entrance to a secret dimension, a new opportunity opening up for him. With determination, Sang turns the doorknob of the magical door, ready to explore his new power. He sets one foot inside, crossing the threshold into a mysterious subspace that exists outside of normal time. Before fully entering, he peeks in with a confident smile, aware that his life is about to change. He opens the door wide, revealing an ethereal and magical landscape inside. The strangest part is that, from within the dimension, the exit door looks like the normal entrance to his study. In this space, time manifests as a giant clock gear floating amid clouds of purple smoke. Our protagonist ventures deeper into this fantastic place, a realm where he can control the flow of time at will. Meanwhile, the scene transports us to the rooftop of the prestigious law firm Kim & Kong. There, one of the senior lawyers bitterly complains about the attitude of the new generation of employees. His colleague approaches him and, seeing how upset he is, asks what the problem is this time. His colleague, upon seeing him, immediately guesses the cause of his anger and asks if some rookie has spoken back to him rudely again. The red-haired lawyer exhales a puff of smoke, expressing all the frustration he feels with a sigh. He begins his sermon, saying that getting into the best law firm in Korea is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With a fury that bewilders his colleague, he shouts that young people should work harder and have more ambition. He then explains that he asked a new employee for an urgent translation, but the employee replied that it would be more efficient to outsource the work. His colleague shares his outrage, questioning whether the newcomers think the firm is a playground. You simply cannot take a job at Kim & Kong lightly. It's the #1 law firm in all of Korea, a firm so prestigious that it ranks among the top 50 worldwide in terms of revenue. For this reason, the firm has implemented an even more rigorous selection process to recruit the best talent. Due to the abolition of the bar exam, they are now forced to be more meticulous than ever when choosing their new lawyers. The bespectacled lawyer, whom we'll call Four Eyes, reflects on how we live in an age obsessed with qualifications. However, he recalls the case of last week's candidate, our protagonist Sang, who didn't fit any mold. He remembers him sitting across from him, with an attitude that left him completely perplexed. He wasn't arrogant, but rather had an unusual calm and confidence, very different from that of other candidates. Four Eyes arrives at the only possible conclusion. His relaxed attitude had to be because he had connections, a clear case of nepotism. After all, the firm is so strict that it does not even consider international lawyers who have not graduated from one of the top 14 universities in the US. And yet, Sang's diploma came from a completely unknown local university. To be honest, Four Eyes admits that he never intended to hire him. But despite his desire to reject him, he found himself in a situation where he couldn't. And this is where he explodes in frustration, because he doesn't understand why the special recruitment team took on this case, confirming that the order came from very high up. In a flashback, a colleague reveals to Four Eyes that the order to hire Sang came directly from above. Four Eyes falls silent, trying to guess which high-ranking figure could be behind this decision. Suddenly, his face lights up with an alarming understanding. Realizing who the mysterious backer might be, his colleague puts a hand on his shoulder and tells him to just follow orders and conduct the interview. Back in the present, Four Eyes admits that if it weren't for that powerful recommendation, he would never have hired Sang. Then, to change the subject, he asks his red-headed colleague how he solved the translation problem. The redhead sighs, saying that he had to subcontract the work and that the deadline is next week. Four Eyes is stunned when he learns that the document is the incredible length of 600 pages. Seeing his friend so desperate, he asks why he has to translate and submit such a massive report. The redhead explains that it is a tactic of the opposing lawyer, famous for demanding all documents to delay the case. After hearing his colleague's dilemma, Four Eyes comes up with an idea to test the new recommend. He approaches the red-headed lawyer and asks him to send the file with the 600 pages he urgently needs translated. He thinks it is the perfect opportunity to see what the rookie is made of, although he is not sure he can pull it off. Shortly after, our protagonist, Sang, is called to Four Eyes' office, unaware of the trap waiting for him. He is stunned when he is assigned the translation of a huge case from the international litigation team. Four Eyes disguises it as an opportunity, arguing that it is good experience since he still doesn't have a team assigned. Then he gives him a 1-week deadline, knowing it is an impossible task, as it is equivalent to translating 2 law books. He knows that even dividing the work among several translators would not maintain consistency in the legal terminology. So, with a mischievous smile, he decides to leave the impossible task to Sang to see how he manages it. Our protagonist remains silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the challenge he has been assigned. Surprisingly, Sang accepts the impossible mission with a radiant smile, as if it were the easiest task in the world. That very night, he arrives home ready to use his secret skill and show what he is capable of. Right at the entrance, he finds some packages he had ordered that are crucial for his plan. His mother, seeing the boxes, asks him what they are, and he lies, saying they are batteries for camping. As he struggles to carry the heavy equipment upstairs, his mother jokes about the size of the batteries. They share a funny and tender moment that demonstrates the great relationship they have. Once alone, he sighs in relief seeing that his excuse worked and that he has everything he needs. He takes a moment to order food on his phone, preparing for the long work session ahead. Then, leaving the phone as an anchor in the real world's time, he heads to the entrance of his secret dimension. The phone resting on the gears symbolizes his power. While time outside continues its course, for him it is about to stop. Sang gets to work and begins installing all the lighting equipment he had purchased in the room. After a great effort, he finally finishes setting up all the lights. Feeling the relief of having completed the hard task, he reveals one of the rules of this space. The room gets bigger every time he offers it gold. At first, this place was simply a dark void, a space with nothing inside it. That is why his first goal was to fill it with light, so he could work and move safely. Thanks to the lights he installed, he can finally clearly see what his new base of operations really looks like. However, when he looks up, he notices something very strange. There is no visible ceiling. To check if the space is infinite, he decides to conduct a simple experiment using a helium balloon. In the middle of his new setup, he prepares to release the balloon and see what happens. The balloon rises and rises beyond the reach of the light and disappears forever into the unfathomable darkness, confirming his suspicions. After the balloon experiment, Sang feels a little scared by the infinite nature of the room. However, he quickly regains his composure, thinking that at least the place is stable and doesn't seem like it's going to collapse. Once the installation is finished, he leaves the secret dimension, satisfied with his work. Upon returning to his studio, his gaze immediately falls on the phone he had left on the table. The screen still shows the same notification. Your food order will arrive in 48 minutes. At first, he feels confused and thinks the delivery person is simply delayed. But he soon realizes there is no delay and that his phone is not broken. The astonishing reality is that time moves forward for him inside the room, but it stops completely in the outside world. The rule is simple. When he exits, outside time resets to the exact moment he entered, as if nothing had happened. With this revelation, Sang understands the incredible power he holds. Basically, he possesses infinite time. Aware of his power, Sang enters the time room, knowing that this time he will stay much longer than ever before. With steel determination in his eyes, he prepares for a long work session in the subspace. He calculates that translating the 600 pages will take about 15 or 20 days of continuous effort within his dimension. Meanwhile, in the real world, only a few days have passed, and Four Eyes works in his office. Suddenly, he hears a knock at the door and, with little interest, tells the person to come in. Who appears is Sang, who greets him politely and asks if he can steal a minute. Four Eyes immediately thinks the rookie has come to give up and submit his resignation. He looks at Sang's resume on the screen, thinking with disappointment that he hasn't even lasted a week. Putting on a poker face, he asks him indifferently what is going on. To his astonishment, Sang pulls out a binder bursting with papers, referring to the task he had been assigned. With astonishing confidence, Sang lays the stack of 600 translated pages on his supervisor's desk. Four Eyes is left completely speechless, wondering if it's possible that he has already finished. His brain short-circuits as he compares Sang's mediocre resume with the incredible feat he has just witnessed. The overwhelming evidence of his work clashes head-on with the preconceived notion he had of the rookie. Sang, with a serene smile, simply confirms that yes, he has completed the translation. And to give a sense of the magnitude of the surprise, this supervisor is Du Daeji, a former prosecutor and partner with 12 years of experience. A genius who completed his master's at the prestigious Columbia University and holds a license to practice in New York. His current position in the recruitment team is actually part of his training to become a senior executive. It is a fundamental step in his career, designed to prepare him for the highest ranks of the firm. In short, Du Daeji is the elite of the elite at Kim and Kong, a man who is almost impossible to impress. The narrator explains that when Du Daeji faces something illogical, his instinct is to analyze it. He delves into the problem, dissects it piece by piece, and devours it until he fully understands it. His most distinctive trait is his stubbornness, forcing any situation to fit his own strict logic. This almost brutal obstinacy is a common characteristic among top-level lawyers. True to his nature, Du Daeji begins his logical attack by asking Sang about his previous work experience. As he brushes his fingers over the 600 pages, his mind has already reached the only conclusion he considers possible. Suddenly, he bursts into anger and asks Sang if he thinks the firm is a joke. Due to his arrogant personality, he is the kind of man who takes an eternity to admit he is wrong. He accuses him of having used artificial intelligence to translate the documents, assuming that the quality will be terrible. He shouts that these are not children's tales, but 600 pages of important legal documents that cannot be taken lightly. Du Daeji's logic cannot process it. If a professional company takes 2 weeks, how could a rookie do it in 3 days? His confusion quickly turns into fury, and he asks Sang what sort of person he hates the most. He answers himself that he hates those with connections, but even more those who try to gain recognition by cheating. He lectures him, saying that these are crucial legal documents and that it is unacceptable to submit them with a translation done by AI. Completely convinced that Sang has cheated, he prepares to teach him a lesson he won't forget. In a fit of anger, He throws the 600 pages off the desk and yells at him contemptuously to do it again. All the work Sang had done over days in the time room goes flying through the air. The papers, containing all his effort, end up scattered on the floor at his feet. While Sang quietly picks them up, Du Daeji thinks that his plan to make him do simple tasks for 6 months has changed. He can't believe the audacity the rookie has had to, in his view, try to blatantly deceive his superior. After gathering the papers, Sang squeezes them tightly, a sign that he won't stand idly by. To his boss's surprise, he looks up with a defiant smile, showing he has no intention of giving up. Then, he takes out a USB drive and places it on the table, a gesture that leaves Du Daeji even more confused. He tells him firmly that he hasn't used any AI and has worked as hard as possible, asking him to review his work. Du Daeji, incredulous at the rookie's audacity, angrily asks what he just said. Unfazed, Sang repeats that he did the work honestly and that it is not a sloppy translation. With unexpected passion, he shouts pleadingly, begging for a chance and asking him to review the documents. While Sang bows, Du Daeji clenches his fist, struggling against his own anger and rigid logic. The supervisor brings his hand to his head, completely overwhelmed by the young man's unyielding and desperate insistence. Finally, he gives in, telling him to take the job, but with the cold warning that he will show no mercy if he's not up to the task. Once Sang leaves, Du Daeji remains alone in his office with the USB drive on the desk. He looks at the small device with disdain, still convinced that it's all a rookie's sham. Determined to prove he is right, he takes the USB drive to begin his thorough review. He plugs it into his computer, silently swearing to analyze every phrase and every word. With the cursor hovering over the folder, he mentally prepares for the error hunt he's about to start. With fierce determination, he promises himself he'll find even the smallest fault to humiliate the newcomer. However, sometime later, an assistant enters his office with unexpected news. The translation was perfect. The news leaves Du Daeji completely shocked, as if he had been struck on the head with a hammer. The assistant, excited, explains that there isn't a single error to correct, not even in the footnotes. Impressed by the quality, the assistant asks which translation company managed such a flawless job in such a short time. Shortly after, Du Daeji receives a call from a colleague praising the translation for its clarity and deep legal knowledge. The colleague, impressed, asks for an introduction to the supposed agency responsible for the translation, to which Du Daeji replies that it was the work of a top talent. Cornered by the insistence, he hangs up sweating and saying he will think it over. After hanging up, he remains in complete silence, unable to process the turn of events. His plan was to humiliate the rookie, but instead, he is the one who has received all the praise for the impeccable work. His world is turned upside down as he wonders who Han Sang really is. 3 days later, Sang talks on the phone with his mother, happy to know she no longer has to go to the hospital. He scolds her affectionately for not taking enough care after her accident, although she complains that he worries too much. Then, his mother asks with interest how he is doing at his new and prestigious job. In a concerned tone, she asks if there are any strange people there, alluding to the bad experiences he had at his previous job. To reassure his mother, Sang lies, saying there is no one troublesome at his new job. She assures him that everyone is treating him wonderfully, which is a great relief for her. She ends the call kindly asking him to take the day off to rest and not to worry about her anymore. After hanging up, he takes a moment for himself, processing the conversation he just had. He lets out a sigh, perhaps from the burden of having to lie to protect his mother from any worry. Just as he is about to continue with his day, someone approaches and calls him by name. It's Lawyer Kim, the redhead from the other day, approaching him in the break area. He thanks him for his help with the translation and asks if Supervisor Du Daeji is giving him any trouble. Immediately after, he asks for another favor, since word has spread that he's an exceptional translator. Sang can only force an awkward smile, as the memory of Du Daeji's anger remains vivid. Lawyer Kim pressures Sang, saying that if he could translate 600 pages in 3 days, this new job will be a breeze. Without letting him respond, Lawyer Kim becomes excited, interpreting his silence as a modest acceptance. Quickly, he puts a USB drive into his hand and begs him to help with this translation too. He tells him not to worry about the time and assures him he has already spoken with Supervisor Du to get permission. Completely cornered, Our protagonist has no choice but to accept with a nervous laugh. Internally, he panics upon realizing that his own efficiency has become an unexpected problem. Lawyer Kim leaves pleased, encouraging him without being aware of the enormous pressure he has just placed on him. Sang remains alone, staring at the USB drive as he tries to comprehend the new, enormous task he has been assigned. He takes a sip of coffee and clenches his fist, searching within himself for the strength not to become overwhelmed. More than anything, he drinks with the determination to prove to everyone that he is worthy of working at that prestigious firm. This steely determination to succeed is born from his traumatic experience at his first job. He remembers his beginnings at a small law firm, a time he would rather forget. It was called Yang'e Law Office, and he describes it as a place completely devoid of human warmth. There, his former boss verbally abused him daily, yelling at him for being too slow and meticulous. Faced with abuse of power, a young Sang could only bow his head and apologize submissively. His boss constantly humiliated him, comparing him to others and accusing him of being a slow and useless worker. Ironically, the same person who tormented him had been a very competent lawyer at a major firm. On one occasion, while trying to explain a complicated case to him, his boss interrupted with a yell. Sang was explaining that the case was delayed because the client was Filipino and there had been communication problems. His boss became enraged upon hearing that the client, despite not remembering anything because he was drunk, had supposedly confessed. The boss simply sighs with annoyance, completely ignoring Sang's detailed explanation. Covering his mouth with disdain, he settles the matter, showing that he doesn't care at all about the truth. Then, he yells in his face that he's an idiot for doubting a confession that is already officially recorded. Full of anger, he grabs a heavy folder from his desk with a clear violent intention. Without an ounce of compassion, he hits Sang directly in the face with the folder. He tells him that instead of wasting time investigating if the confession is false, he should focus on getting results. While continuing to humiliate him, he yells that he should use his brain and earn his salary, and Sang can only think about holding on. He mocks him for translating Filipino, telling him he thinks he's an international lawyer without even having studied abroad. At that moment, Sang realizes it's useless to try to communicate or reason with his boss. With tears of humiliation in his eyes, all he can do is lower his head and apologize again. Our protagonist tells us that his plan was simply to endure the abuse in his first job, but his determination broke the day his mother suffered a terrible accident that left her hospitalized. From the hospital, he called his boss to beg for leave until he could find a caregiver. His boss's response was ruthlessly cruel, accusing him of being selfish for burdening his co-workers with his work. He continued humiliating him, reproaching his slowness and telling him it was ridiculous to want to take a break. Driven to his absolute limit, Sang made the only possible decision and informed them that he was resigning. And with that simple word, he finally freed himself from his job at the Yang'e firm and began a new chapter. Sometime later, without a job, he decided to take the opportunity to clean the old, dusty attic of his house. He started moving boxes and organizing the mess that had accumulated over the years. The dust was so thick that he began to cough, wishing he had remembered to wear a mask. While cleaning the dusty attic, something on the bookshelf suddenly caught his attention. An old book had fallen to the floor, leaving a noticeable gap among the others. When he bent down to pick up the fallen book, his instinct told him something was off. Curiosity overcame him, and he decided to look through the small space the book had left when it fell. To his surprise, he saw the metallic shine of a safe's dial hidden behind the bookshelf. That, my friends, was the very moment when Sang's life changed forever upon discovering his father's secret. Time passed after that discovery, and one day, the big opportunity came, an interview at Kim & Kong. But during the interview, lawyer Du Daeji asked him a question that left him completely confused. He asked if he remembered having sent an application to the firm the previous year. Sang went blank until a vague and distant memory of a drunken night began to return to his mind. The memory took him back to the day he received the news that he had passed the bar exam in Washington, D.C. To celebrate, he and his friends got drunk until they passed out, toasting to their new status as international lawyers. In the midst of the drunkenness, Sang came up with the brilliant idea of applying to work at Kim & Kong. His friends, equally drunk, encouraged him to do it, telling him he had nothing to lose and might get lucky. Driven by alcohol and euphoria, he went with the flow of the moment, and decided to follow their advice. That very night, in a sorry state, he opened the job page and started filling out the application. Without thinking twice, he completed his personal information with a confidence only alcohol can give. And with a cheer of encouragement, he clicked the send button, an act he would completely forget the next morning. Back in the present, he realizes that the interview is due to that request he sent while drunk a year ago. When the interviewer insists, Sang, in a cold sweat, clumsily admits that yes, it was he who sent it. After his revelation, Sang admits with a nervous smile that, indeed, he was the one who applied last year. The interview continues normally until the end, when lawyer Do Daeji addresses him one last time. With a seriousness that chills the blood, he throws the key question at him. What is your relationship with lawyer Gang Tae-san? Sang is completely thrown off, not understanding why they are asking such a specific question. His mind panics at the thought of whether they are referring to the legendary founding partner, Gang, of Kim and Gang. Stammering, he honestly replies that if they mean the managing partner of the firm, he has never met him. Do Daeji stares at him for a moment, weighing his answer with an inscrutable look. To his complete astonishment, the lawyer tells him he is hired and starts working next week. When asked if he has any problem starting so soon, Sang quickly denies it enthusiastically. Once outside the building, he is still in shock, as it is very unusual to receive the result in the same interview. Still confused by the interview, Sang doesn't understand why they contacted him a year after his application. He knows that with his resume, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have had the slightest chance of getting into Kim and Kong. Despite the strange circumstances surrounding his hiring, he clenches his fist with determination. He promises himself that, no matter what comes, he will give 100% to succeed. For him, this is the beginning of his great challenge, to climb the imposing mountain called Kim and Kong. Sometime later, facing the disdain of his supervisor, he finally understands that they see him as the office-connected guy. Do Daeji looks at him incredulously, asking if he really claims to have done the entire translation by himself. Sang, however, was already expecting this kind of skeptical and condescending treatment. With a calmness that disarms his boss, he confirms that yes, he alone achieved that level of quality through his own effort. He pauses briefly, gathering the courage to ask the question that will test his supervisor's integrity. With unexpected bravery, Sang asks his boss if he really believes he needed help to do the job. Do Daeji, without a shred of doubt, adjusts his glasses and replies with a sharp and condescending yes. Our protagonist insists that it is unfair to judge his ability based solely on his academic background and experience. The response makes Do Daeji furious, slamming the table and asking why he should think otherwise. He tells Sang that he has no idea about the caliber of candidates who don't even make it past the waiting room. He makes it clear to him that, with his mediocre qualifications, it is absolutely impossible that he got into the firm on his own merit. Sang desperately tries to defend himself, swearing that he has no connection to the famous lawyer Gang Tae-san. But at that moment he realizes it's useless, since his supervisor has already labeled him a cheater. Do Daeji responds coldly that if he is telling the truth, then everything is even stranger, but he has no intention of investigating. Desperate, Sang wonders what logical argument he could use to convince such a stubborn and prejudiced person. While his boss tries to fire him, Sang realizes he has to do something drastic to change his opinion. Do Daeji, already fed up with the situation, tells him that's enough and prepares to kick him out. But our protagonist interrupts him with a single phrase full of determination. I'll do it myself. Sang's sudden boldness leaves his supervisor completely speechless and puzzled. He reasons that since they have already judged him, words are useless, so he will prove it with actions. His proposal is simple. He will translate a document right then and there, in front of him, to demonstrate his skill. And so, he settles at a desk in his boss's office, ready for the ultimate test. Do Daeji accepts the challenge and hands him a 30-page contract in English as a test. With confidence that surprises his boss, Sang declares that he will finish the translation in less than 2 hours. The clock starts ticking, beginning a test that will determine Sang's future at the company. As he types, Sang knows that his skill with English is neither innate nor superior to others. But what his boss doesn't know is what he has been doing in the real world over the past month. The number of pages he has secretly translated is a figure that defies all logic. He recalls the countless hours he spent in his secret dimension, working tirelessly day and night. Surrounded by stacks of paper reaching to the ceiling, he devoted himself to one thing: translating. The result of his training is that in just one real-world month, he has translated over 5,000 pages. In fact, he has spent the equivalent of more than a year locked inside that subspace. Meanwhile, in Du Daeji's office, time continues its normal course, second by second. Our protagonist thinks about the famous rule of 10,000 hours needed to master a skill. During his year in the subspace, he devoted himself to translating legal documents like a madman, far surpassing that number. With the confidence his training gives him, Sang knows that for a 30-page contract, 1 hour is more than enough time. Shortly after, Du Daeji, having received the document, coldly tells him that he can now go home. Sang politely says goodbye, leaving his supervisor alone to judge the outcome of his test. Du Daeji begins reading the translation skeptically, looking for any errors to validate his prejudices. To his complete astonishment, the work, completed in 58 minutes, is absolutely perfect, clear, and without a single mistake. He leans back in his chair, thoughtful, unable to understand how the rookie could have achieved such a feat. He feels embarrassed and a bit ridiculous for having set up an entire test to evaluate the translation skills of a lawyer. Despite his mixed feelings, he cannot help but admit that, setting aside his suspicions, the boy is truly good. Then, his mind returns to the source of all the mystery: the name of the legendary founding partner, Gang Tae-san. He clearly remembers the day a superior told him that Sang was a candidate personally recommended by him. Du Daeji admits to himself that his prejudice led him to think Sang was just another useless favoritism case. He sees himself as the person responsible for removing the tumors from the firm, thus justifying his initial hostile attitude. However, now that he has seen Sang's talent, he decides it is his duty to place him in the right position. Without hesitation, he picks up the phone and dials the number of a colleague in another department. On the other end of the line, attorney Yoon Sang-ho from the maritime team answers the call. Du Daeji introduces himself, which surprises Yoon Sang-ho, who was not expecting his call. Surrounded by huge stacks of work, Yoon Sang-ho asks what he needs from him. Du Daeji reminds him that he recently complained about needing a lawyer fluent in both Korean and English. With a smug smile, he knows he has the perfect solution to his colleague's problem. He announces that he has found the ideal candidate, a new and talented attorney from Washington, D.C., who has just joined the firm. And he tells himself that, as part of his job on the recruitment team, it is also his responsibility to assign the right tasks to the new talents. Sang compares his current situation to an old role-playing game he was hooked on, which allowed players to choose multiple professions. Though it seemed like a common game at first glance, it had a unique feature that made it incredibly special. That special mechanic was the ability to change your character's profession at any point during the game. This gave him complete freedom to customize his character and learn all kinds of skills. He recalls that at first, he made him a powerful swordsman who mastered the arts of the blade. Later, he changed his class to summoner, becoming strong enough to summon the dragon behemoth. He kept changing professions even after finishing the game, learning skills as a thief, bard, and many others. For him, the fun wasn't in the story, but in the process of mastering countless different skills. And now, in real life, he realizes that he's applying that same mindset to his work as a lawyer. He admits that translating nonstop for a year wasn't fun, but his competitive spirit forced him to keep going until he mastered it. With dark circles from fatigue but a defiant look, Sang took his training as a competition he had to win. However, all the time and effort he invested in the secret room were not in vain. As if it were a video game, his hard work granted him a new and brilliant notification. Thanks to the thousands of pages translated, the room's system awarded him the title of translator. A status window appeared before him, confirming that he had officially acquired the mastery of a professional translator. The thrill of accomplishment runs through his entire body, clenching his fist with immense satisfaction. In that moment of euphoria, he finally understands how he can make the most of the power of the secret dimension. After his intense training, he decides to take a break and contacts his best friend. He asks if he is busy the next day and suggests that he accompany him to a place. So, the next morning, on a Saturday, the two friends arrive at the International Electronics Center. The two friends arrive at the electronics mall, and Ki-dung asks Sang why he has brought him there. Suddenly, Ki-dung begins to suspect the true and luxurious reason for their visit. Byum-sang confirms with a smile that yes, he has come to buy the new PlayStation 5. His friend bursts out in a scream of pure envy, lamenting the misfortunes of being a married man who can't indulge in such luxuries. Byum-sang tries to reason with him, but his friend shouts that he doesn't understand the suffering of married men. Once in the store, Byum-sang plans to buy the console along with several games to try it out. That's when he reveals to his friend the real reason why he needed him to come along. It turns out that his friend Ki-dung has a secret and legendary skill. He's a master negotiator. Demonstrating his power, he starts bargaining with the seller to get Byum-sang several games for free with his purchase. Thanks to his friend's incredible skill, Byum-sang leaves the store with his new console and a bunch of games at a bargain price. The negotiation continues, with Ki-dung fighting fiercely for every last cent to get the best deal. Byum-sang tells us that his friend has been a master negotiator since high school, with a charm worthy of market saleswomen. Finally, the seller gives up, completely exhausted and defeated by Ki-dung's incredible skill. Ki-dung celebrates his victory like a child, hugging the new console and the games he has gotten. After the feat, Ki-dung boasts about how much money he has saved, and Byum-sang promises to treat him to dinner as a thank you. But to his friend's surprise, Byum-sang tells him that before dinner, they have to make a stop somewhere else. They arrive at what seems to be a camping gear store, a destination that completely confuses Ki-dung. That's when his friend realizes that Byum-sang tricked him into bringing his van to serve as a transporter. Ki-dung jokes that marriage has made him sharper, because if he's not quick, he's dead. With a growing sense of dread, Ki-dung peeks into the back of his van to see what he'll have to load. Seeing the trunk, his friend Ki-dung jokingly asks if he's preparing for the apocalypse. His amazement reaches its limit when he discovers that, among all the things, he has bought a portable toilet. Byum-sang recalls inventing an excuse about going camping to justify his strange purchases. Ki-dung complains that he's being used as a transporter, even to carry a toilet, and demands a good dinner. To calm him down, Byum-sang promises to treat him to the best Korean beef, and his friend's attitude changes instantly. Our protagonist smiles, satisfied to have appeased his chauffeur and friend with the promise of a good meal. Changing the subject, the story takes us to a flashback of Byum-sang's past, who admits he never had many friends. Because he was a quiet and small-built child, he became the perfect target for bullies. At school, he suffered constant and brutal harassment by his classmates. Beatings were common, and he remembers how they attacked him mercilessly, even kicking him in the face. The flashback shows us the cruelty of the bullies, who had fun watching him suffer on the ground. They often grabbed him by the hair, subjecting him to constant physical and psychological abuse. They demanded that he change his dead expression if he didn't want to receive more beatings. He suffered in silence and solitude, which made him an even easier target for the bullies. But one day, in one of his worst moments, a friendly hand reached out to help him get up. It was Ki-dung, his one and only true friend, who tried to cheer him up by inviting him to an internet cafe. With a wounded face, Byum-sang looked at him, unable to believe that someone cared about him. The simple kindness of his friend was enough to break down his barriers, and he began to cry inconsolably. As Ki-dung comforted him, Byum-sang thinks that if he ever invites anyone to his secret place, he will be the first. Back in the present, the two friends enjoy a delicious barbecue, and Ki-dung asks him about his new salary. While they eat, Ki-dung asks Byum-sang about his salary, and he responds with a gesture that leaves his friend in shock. Ki-dung can't believe the amount, exclaiming that the salary at Kim and Gang is out of this world. Happy for his friend's fortune, he jokingly asks him to invite him to eat more often from now on. Byum-sang smiles, glad to share his success and enjoy a good meal with his best friend. As they walk, they continue joking, and Byum-sang tells him he will buy him gold again, asking for a good price. Meanwhile, at the office, the rumor about Gang Tae-san's new connected hire spreads like wildfire. Coworkers gossip, wondering how the hiring attorney, Do, could allow such a thing. One of them remembers that Do Dae-gi has always despised nepotism, even back when they were interns. Because of that, he feels disappointed, as he had always thought his supervisor was a fair man. Suddenly, a female figure appears and interrupts them, telling them to stop talking behind their colleagues' backs. One of the employees panics upon recognizing the woman who interrupted them, attorney Do Ha-young. With commanding elegance, the attorney walks past the group of gossipers, but she stops dead, feeling they were talking about her. which causes panic among the employees. She turns to confront them with a cold look that leaves them frozen in place. With a sharp voice, she asks them bluntly if they were bad-mouthing her behind her back. Sometime after this incident, Sang is summoned again to his supervisor's office. He knocks on the door with some apprehension, and a voice from inside tells him he may enter. Our protagonist enters, wondering what Dae-ji wants from him after their last confrontation. But he is greatly surprised when his supervisor addresses him in a new and respectful way, Lawyer Han. The change leaves him stunned, as until that moment, Dae-ji had always referred to him by his full name in a derogatory manner. Dae-ji tells Sang that starting next week, he no longer needs to go to work at that office. Our protagonist goes completely pale, thinking that after all his effort, he is going to be fired. Seeing Sang's panic-stricken expression, his supervisor can't help but smile maliciously. He clarifies that he is not firing him, but permanently transferring him to the maritime law team. Sang repeats the name of the team, trying to process his boss's sudden decision. He recalls having read that maritime law is one of the 2 areas where a foreign lawyer can succeed in Korea. It is a field where, due to the international nature of the ships, lawyers like him are crucial. Dae-ji misinterprets his silence as fear and provokes him, but Sang quickly denies having any doubts. Although he admits to himself that he knows nothing about the subject, a new sensation begins to invade him. Instead of fear, he feels excited, seeing this transfer as an opportunity to obtain a new title. With a smile full of gratitude, Sang accepts the challenge and promises to give his best in his new position. Meanwhile, Lawyer Do Ha-young confronts the employees who were gossiping, asking if they were talking about her. Terrified, they deny everything, saying they would never dare speak ill of a superior. To divert attention, one of them brings up the topic of the new foreign lawyer and his mysterious hiring. He wonders aloud how someone from such an obscure university could have gotten into the firm. Then, to include her in the conversation, he mentions that she is also from an elite university, like Yonsei. Do Ha-young cuts them off, revealing that she has found out the new lawyer has been transferred to the maritime team. Everyone is surprised, as the maritime team has the reputation of being the toughest and most demanding in the company. She clarifies that it is not just a tough team, but they are like the Avengers, a gathering of the elite of the elite. She fondly remembers her time as an intern there, admitting it was a place with so much to learn. With a radiant smile, the new employee introduced himself to the bustling law firm, ready to begin. A kindly-looking lawyer offered to be his guide, her heels clicking efficiently as she led him down the halls. Upon arriving at his new desk, an overwhelming sense of pressure engulfed him, leaving him momentarily speechless. The reality of the job revealed itself as a whirlwind of urgent calls and documents to organize, a constant chaos demanding his immediate attention. From a distance, a colleague watched, silently questioning the harsh atmosphere that permeated the place. The whispers in the office were cruel, judging him as a mediocre talent destined to fail among geniuses, simply because of the university he came from. The impact of those words hit him like an icy wave, cold sweat rolling down his forehead as doubt began to take root within him. The firm's frantic pace was relentless, a battlefield where phones never stopped ringing and stress was a constant companion. However, amid the general skepticism, one lawyer saw in his arrival not a failure, but an intriguing opportunity. His official welcome ended with a monumental pile of files on his desk, a trial by fire that would determine his future at the firm. The introduction of his new colleague, Song Ji-eun, was so brief and curt that it left him baffled and sweating with nerves. He soon grasped the harsh reality of the maritime team. Although they had few members, the workload was a colossal mountain. Despite the overwhelming task, a new determination was forged within him, deciding to face the challenge one step at a time. Like an electric storm tearing through the sky, 3 hellish weeks of trial began that would push him to the limits of his endurance. Amid the chaos, a call from a senior partner rang like thunder, demanding he draft an urgent email about Korean maritime law. With unwavering obedience, he headed to the partner's office, only to be intercepted in the hallway by another superior, Lawyer Yoon. Lawyer Yoon handed him more documents and a new mission, an imminent conference call with the United Kingdom added to his task list. Although his mind could barely process the avalanche of work, an energetic smile and an enthusiastic "understood" were his only responses. Night fell and the rain pounded the windows, but he kept typing without rest, motivated by the simple promise of being able to eat dinner afterward. The echo of heels in the empty hallway was the only sound, a constant reminder that in that work hell, time never stopped. The mountain of documents before him seemed to grow with every passing second, a sight that took his breath away. His colleague Song Joon added another complex task to the pile, ordering him to investigate UK legal precedents before the day was over. Barely peeking over the sea of paper, his face reflected the pure terror of someone who feels completely buried. His eyes, wide open, were a mirror of his inner panic as a drop of cold sweat slid down his temple. A silent scream echoed in his mind. It wasn't just the work, it was the speed, a relentless burst of tasks being hurled directly at him. He felt as if he were caught in the middle of a deluge, with the voices of his superiors falling like acid rain of urgent orders. Frustration consumed him, wondering why a team with such a workload didn't hire more people to handle it. Meanwhile, at the top of the tower, the team's senior partner, Baek In-chan, watched the rainy city before calmly picking up the phone. The call was for him, a direct summons from the most powerful man in the team, whose words were absolute orders. In the partner's office, he was immediately put to the test, questioned about the progress of a critical deal for a video conference that very afternoon. Faced with the partner's cold question about whether there was a problem, the rookie could barely express his confusion. Nervously, he reminded his boss that the crucial internal meeting for the contract had never taken place. Partner Beck ignored his own oversight, ordering him to proceed with drafting the document as scheduled anyway. Then, with a calculating look, he demanded that the draft be finished before 5 p.m., using templates as a guide. Disbelief flooded Han's mind, wondering if it was humanly possible to complete such an unfamiliar task in so little time. As the rain poured outside, he repeated the deadline in a whisper, as if he couldn't believe the words he had heard. His boss replied ironically that the meeting was at 6, so a perfect draft by then would be acceptable, but Han could only ask if it was a joke. With a cold smile that betrayed no humor, the senior partner confirmed that he was not joking in the slightest. His boss's final question was a direct blow, a challenge that called his competence into doubt. "Why can't you do it?" Driven by pressure and pride, he shouted his reply, vowing to give his best against all odds. Upon leaving the partner's office, the weight of the impossible task he had just accepted fell upon his shoulders. A cold sweat ran down his back as regret struck him. He realized he had made a grave mistake by accepting the challenge. Plunged into anxiety, he considered his scant options, knowing he was in an incredibly difficult situation. He decided he couldn't act blindly, and, in a last effort to find help, went to look for lawyer Yoon Sang-go. His hope faded when his colleague, Song Joon, informed him that lawyer Yoon was on a business trip in Busan. Noticing his desperation, she explained her colleague's absence and kindly asked if there was anything she could help him with. He awkwardly explained the MV Stellar case contract, but her offer to help after 3 in the afternoon was not enough. With a forced smile, he politely declined her help, declaring his intention to try on his own due to the strict 5 o'clock deadline. She watched him, thinking to herself that drafting such a complex contract in half a day was an unreasonable demand for a rookie. A sigh of resignation escaped her lips, a mixture of compassion for the young lawyer and frustration with her boss's methods. A colleague watches BM Sang, silently wondering about the nature of the test that the formidable lawyer Baek In-chan has imposed on him. The fluorescent light from the office ceiling bathes the scene in an atmosphere of stillness and focus. BM Sang's fingers move uncertainly over the keyboard, searching for the right words that refuse to come. Despite having several templates on the screen, BM Sang sighs in frustration, not knowing where to start the complex task. Feeling completely alone and with no one to consult, he rises from his seat with a growing sense of despair. His gaze suddenly fixes on a small, ornamental plant, and a strange exclamation of surprise escapes his lips. An unusual idea, evoked by the mere sight of the tree, flashes in his eyes with the force of a revelation. With a new spark of hope, he realizes that, after all, there is someone he can turn to for help. Instantly, in another office, a mobile phone vibrates insistently, showing the name BM Sang on the incoming call screen. A friendly-looking man answers the call familiarly, while details of a maritime shipping program are being discussed around him. In a determined voice, BM Sang greets his contact, Myul, and asks if he has a moment for an urgent consultation. Sang explains that he desperately needs recommendations on which books he should study to master the complex field of maritime law. Surprised by the sudden question, Myul inquires if he has been assigned to the prestigious maritime team, to which Sang admits he is still struggling to adapt as a rookie. Myul takes a moment to reflect, murmuring to himself as he considers the best reading options for his friend. A mischievous smile appears on Myul's face as he assures him that, indeed, there are some exceptionally good reference books for his purpose. Myul's suggestion leaves Sang completely astonished, unable to believe the titles his friend is recommending. A brief moment of silence passes after the call, marking the end of the conversation and the beginning of the next phase of Sang's plan. Meanwhile, his colleague, Lawyer Song, walks down the hallway distressed as she realizes she has forgotten the materials for an important meeting. Her worry is abruptly interrupted when she looks up and freezes at a completely unexpected scene in front of her. What she sees is Sang, not wasting time, but methodically stacking a tower of books he has just obtained. Lawyer Song's hand closes on the meeting room door handle, preparing to enter. Upon opening the door, she encounters the bewildering scene of Sang calmly wrapping a pile of books from the library. With an expression of total disbelief, she loudly asks him what he thinks he is doing during work hours. Unfazed, Sang informs her with a smile that he needs to step out for a moment to go home. Despite her confusion, he confirms that he will take the books and promises to return before 5, asking her to cover for him with Lawyer Beck. Sang walks away quickly, leaving his colleague completely baffled and barely able to articulate a response. With a drop of sweat on his temple, he tells himself that, although his plan seems strange, it's the only way if he wants to survive in the competitive firm. Walking down the street, he reflects that his superior probably misunderstood his situation by recommending such dense academic texts. He only needed material he could absorb quickly, but instead received a bibliography that would take him a whole year to study thoroughly. His final destination is not his home, but a 24-hour comic book store, where he stands with firm determination to read them all without rest. Sang approaches the comic book store counter and asks the clerk if they have the series known as The King of the Sea. The clerk, waking from a nap, confirms that he means the 45-volume manga series, to which Sang responds that he will take them all. Visibly surprised by the strange request, the clerk stammers, asking for confirmation if he really wants to take the entire collection. As he searches for the volumes on the shelf, the clerk sneaks a glance at Sang and silently wonders if the young lawyer is actually an otaku. With a dull thud, 2 imposing stacks containing the complete manga collection are placed on the counter. Joyfully holding the first and last volumes of the saga, Sang gives the employee a radiant smile and thanks him. Back at the office, the senior partner, Baek In-chan, bursts into anger upon being informed that the rookie has gone home. Lawyer Song informs him that Sang left at 5:20, causing the partner to lament having to handle the rookie's work himself. At that very moment, Sang returns and calmly presents himself at his superior's desk, immediately capturing his attention. Partner Baek In-chan looks at him with narrowed eyes, trying to decipher the puzzling logic behind the newcomer's actions. Disappointed, partner Baek In-chan decides to take on the work himself, regretting that the rookie's good first impression was mistaken. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes down the hallway, announcing an unexpected arrival. Sang bursts into the office at full speed, rushing past a surprised Baek In-chan like a blur. Out of breath and covered in sweat, the young lawyer profusely apologizes for his tardiness. His boss demands an explanation, asking if a family emergency caused his strange absence, but Sang denies it. With a formal gesture, Sang hands him a folder, announcing that it is the draft of the agreement in English he had requested. Baek In-chan receives the document with an expression of complete confusion, unable to understand what is happening. His eyes widen in disbelief as he tries to process the rookie's bold delivery. Sang adds that he made the final corrections by hand in the taxi and only needs 5 more minutes to finalize them. Completely exasperated and unsure if it's a joke, the partner orders him to leave the document and go away at once. Partner Baek In-chan coldly dismisses Sang, telling him he will handle the video conference alone. With his face clouded by disappointment, Sang can barely utter a word of dejection. As he walks away, The partner reflects disdainfully that it's not worth wasting energy on someone destined to fail. Baek In-chan thinks the rookie is lucky that his age prevents him from being harsher, but his thought is interrupted by Beom-sang's voice calling him. The young lawyer's call stops the partner dead in his tracks, who turns to face him. With a look of sincere desperation on his face, Beom-sang begins to plead for just one chance. He begs him to please review the work he has prepared, provoking a grimace of anger on the partner's face. On the verge of exploding, Baek In-chan opens his mouth to harshly reprimand the insolent rookie. However, Beom-sang steps forward with a deep bow, formally apologizing for his inexcusable behavior earlier. Rising with renewed determination, he insists that he has worked hard and, if it's not presumptuous, would also like to ask him a question. Partner Baek In-chan reacts with disbelief at Beom-sang's audacity to ask a question at such a tense moment. Undeterred, Beom-sang begins to present a complex legal point, explaining that in English law, debt compensation is divided into two types. He explains traditional compensation with an example where two mutual debts are offset to pay only the difference. Then he details independent compensation, which requires judicial proceedings and must be timely asserted to be valid. Baek In-chan's expression changes drastically upon hearing Beom-sang cite an article by Professor Suk Gwang-hyo defining the second type of compensation as a procedural act. Beom-sang illustrates a potential problem. If they choose London jurisdiction but local law applies, conflicts could arise and cross-claims for damages and reparations. Just as Beom-sang suggests specifying the applicable law more clearly to avoid ambiguities, his boss interrupts him with a sharp enough. With a new tone of interest, the partner asks if he has read the professor's article specifically to draft this agreement. Baek In-chan checks his watch and urgently realizes that only 10 minutes remain before the important meeting begins. With a resigned gesture that hides his astonishment, he orders Beom-sang to leave for now, but to leave the documents he has prepared. After being dismissed by his boss, Beom-sang walks down the hallway with slumped shoulders under the watchful gaze of the partner. Baek In-chan stands still, completely baffled by the novice's behavior, wondering what kind of person he is. The evening sky dyes the city in pink hues as the workday comes to an end. Upon arriving at his own office, Beom-sang exhales a long sigh, releasing the tension accumulated from the encounter. He sits down and reviews his notes, regretting that the conversation ended just as he was beginning to grasp the core of the problem. In his mind, he relives the fatal flaw of his plan, a serious miscalculation of time due to the chaotic city traffic. He remembers his desperation in the taxi, realizing that the real world outside his secret dimension has too many uncontrollable variables. With a dose of realism, he admits that for his boss, the amount of effort he put in is irrelevant if the result isn't perfect. Her gaze rests on the notes and corrections of the document, and a spark of perseverance ignites within her. With a blush of pure concentration, she throws herself onto her keyboard, determined not to leave things as they are and to prove her worth. Tired after a long day, partner Baek In-chan notices a folder with a sticky note someone has left on his desk. Reading the note, he sees it is from Han Beom-sang, who apologizes and begs him to review the document just once. Anger ignites inside him, and he feels tempted to throw the insolent novice's work straight into the trash. However, the memory of Beom-sang's passionate defense and his citation of Professor Suk Gwang-hyo's article halts his impulse. With a sigh of resignation, his anger turns to curiosity, and he decides to sit down to evaluate what the young lawyer has written. The scene transforms into a metaphor, showing a towering galleon sailing on a stormy sea, representing the complex legal case. On the command bridge, Captain Baek In-chan spots a small boat through his spyglass and announces its arrival. In a commanding voice, the captain orders his crew to lower the crane to receive the newcomer. From the deck, the captain asks the young sailor in the boat, who represents Beom-sang, if the catch has been fruitful. In his mind, a critical voice, representing his initial skepticism, complains about the novice's slowness in achieving an impressive result. In the metaphor, the young sailor presents his boat overflowing with a plentiful catch, apologizing for the delay due to the large volume of his haul. The captain, representing the partner, takes off his hat in astonishment, admitting that the level of the result far exceeds his initial expectations. Back in reality, Baek In-chan's expression reflects the same surprise as he reads the draft agreement in his office. He recognizes that the quality of the document is so high that it would take 3 years of experience to write it, and that it is practically ready to be presented. Although impressed and admitting it is not bad, a conflicting thought crosses the partner's mind. He cannot reconcile the excellent quality of the work with the image of the novice cheerfully going home, which makes him question whether the novice is diligent or lazy. Making a decision, Baek-in-chan calls lawyer Yoon to inform him that he does not need to attend the meeting with the Hyunjin Shipping Company. Despite his other colleague also being busy, he explains to Yoon that he wants to give him a chance and bring Han Byum-sang instead. The scene changes, showing the imposing building of the Hyunjin Shipping Company port office, the location of the upcoming meeting. On the way to the meeting, the nature of the case is revealed. His client's foreign vessel has collided with a national ship. It is explained that the case is a typical wet case. There were no casualties, but both the ship and the cargo were damaged. The lead lawyer states that the ultimate goal of the investigation is to clearly determine who is responsible for the incident. Giving instructions to Byum-sang, the partner tells him that since it is his first time, he should focus solely on taking detailed notes. In the meeting room, they begin the interrogation by asking the witness about the sea conditions at the time of the collision. The witness recounts that the sea was so rough that the boat was swaying violently and unstably. Byum-sang listens very attentively to every word, diligently transcribing the testimony on his laptop. The man adds that the fog was so dense that visibility was practically zero, preventing them from seeing ahead. The witness offers a crucial detail, stating that he saw the red navigation light of the other ship about 10 minutes before the impact. In Byum-sang's mind, the pieces of the testimony clash, creating an obvious contradiction. How could he see a light with such thick fog? Raising his eyes from his laptop with a look of astonishment, the young lawyer realizes that he has uncovered a key inconsistency in the statement. At the end of the interview, the partner ensures that Byum-sang has recorded the entire statement without leaving out any details. Just as they were about to leave, Byum-sang steps in to ask permission and pose a crucial question to the captain. With a gesture of indifference, the lead attorney grants permission for him to proceed with his questioning. Byum-sang addresses the captain directly and asks him to confirm his testimony about having seen the red navigation light 10 minutes before the collision. An image from the captain's memory shows the two red lights of the other ship shining in the dense darkness of the night. Visibly nervous, the captain hesitates for a moment before reaffirming his statement with little conviction. The lead partner, sensing that something important is about to happen, drumming his fingers on the case folder. Byum-sang exposes the glaring contradiction. The first officer had previously declared that the fog was so thick that not even the mast light was visible. With a piercing look, the young lawyer presses the captain with the key question: which of the two is telling the truth? Caught in his lie, the captain lowers his head, unable to hold eye contact, sweat beading on his forehead. The lead partner looks at the young lawyer with a satisfied smile, impressed by his sharp discovery during the interrogation. Back at the office, Byum-sang sits nervously in front of his boss, wondering if he has made any mistakes. The partner calls lawyer Han, who answers with a start, still tense from the situation. With an inquisitive look, the partner asks Byum-sang if by any chance he has practical experience aboard a ship. Byum-sang, visibly nervous, firmly denies ever having been on a ship and clarifies that he also did not serve in the Navy. His boss finds the answer strange, as he considers that the question Byum-sang asked is too precise to come only from theoretical study. Changing the subject, the partner places a hand on his shoulder in a paternal gesture and sincerely congratulates him on his good work. He encourages him to keep going down that path, a compliment so unexpected that it makes Byum-sang blush and lose his words. A feeling of deep gratitude floods the young lawyer, who can only think of thanking for the recognition. The sun shines on the imposing building of the Kim and Gang firm, symbolizing Byum-sang's brilliant moment of success at the prestigious firm. At the end of the day, the door of the maritime office on the 14th floor closes, marking the end of the day. Just as they are leaving, the lead lawyer calls Han Byum-sang to assign him a new task. The partner entrusts him with a series of complex tasks regarding the ship MV Amelie, including coordinating the visit of an expert from Hong Kong and contacting the expert from the opposing party. Byum-sang's quick understanding leaves his superior astonished, wondering how the rookie is so familiar with these procedures. Sang demonstrates his knowledge by summarizing that it concerns repairing the bow of the Amelie and the need for temporary waterproofing before its departure. He goes on to detail that the visit of the owner's expert is scheduled, so coordination must be done through the Hyosang shipyard. He flawlessly concludes his summary, confirming that his final task is to find out whether the opposing expert wishes to conduct a joint inspection. Impressed, the partner confirms that everything is correct and thinks that, based on his way of speaking, Sang seems like a veteran with years of field experience. Later, as the senior partner passes by with a smile of approval, another colleague approaches Sang with a new request. The colleague asks him to modify some contractual clauses, but although Sang agrees, he immediately identifies a potential legal risk with the new conditions. When his colleague asks him on what grounds he bases his legal objection, Sang hesitates only for a moment. With a radiant smile, he presents a document and explains that he has found a relevant precedent in the recent decisions of London Maritime Arbitration. His colleague, surprised, reviews the document and thanks a satisfied Sang for having found such information. As he walks away confidently, Sang has an epiphany and feels that he has finally understood something fundamental. He reflects on why his superior recommended that he read the manga, The King of the Sea, instead of an academic text. In his mind, he recalls scenes from the manga showing the chaos and helplessness of the crew facing an imminent collision. He evokes the desperate shouts of the characters giving orders to avoid disaster and realizes that the essence of maritime law isn't found in books. His revelation is complete when he understands that the true nature of maritime law reflects what really happens at sea. He now understands why two slow-moving ships can collide despite spotting each other 30 minutes in advance. And he also understands why veteran captains can run aground on reefs despite having the world's most advanced radars. His epiphany continues as he comprehends why grain ships can suddenly capsize if the cargo shifts unexpectedly. Sang realizes that only by reading these stories about the sea, which aren't found in textbooks, was he able to reach that conclusion. He finally understands the most important lesson. To be a maritime lawyer, it is essential to truly understand how ships operate. Walking through the office with newfound confidence, he feels that he is finally beginning to master his job, under the watchful and satisfied gaze of his superior. A genuine smile of approval appears on the face of the lead lawyer as he observes the progress of his protege. Later, in his office, the partner stretches with relief, celebrating having finished all his work ahead of schedule. He happily thinks that, thanks to the rookie's help, he will finally be able to go hiking over the weekend instead of being stuck in the office. As he leaves the office, briefcase in hand, he runs into another colleague in the hallway. The colleague, surprised to see him leaving so early, asks if he has already finished for the day. The scene shifts to that night, with the two lawyers dining together at a restaurant while discussing the changes in the Gwangwaman neighborhood. Seated at the table, the two lawyers talk about how the tastes of young people have transformed the trendy spots. The lead partner asks his colleague, lawyer Yoon, how things are going at work. Yoon responds indifferently that the work is more or less the same as always. However, as he serves a drink, he admits that things have improved noticeably since lawyer Han joined the firm. The partner agrees, revealing that he has also managed to prepare a draft for Monday, something unusual for him that surprises Yoon. Yoon praises Han, commenting that although he seemed somewhat lost at first, he has now managed to adapt and master the work pace. He adds that even lawyer Song has a good opinion of him, which leaves the partner astonished given how demanding she is. He explains that Han's attitude of investigating precedents regardless of whether they are English or local law is the right approach, concluding that his talent is evident to everyone. The senior partner takes a sip, processing all the information and the positive evaluations about the newcomer. With a sharp thud, he sets his glass down on the table, as if he has just made an important decision on the matter. The senior partner, Baek In-chan, explains that a good maritime lawyer must have an almost detective-like instinct. He uses Han Sang as an example, who, as lawyer Song said, has the right attitude and proved his worth by immediately spotting the error in the captain's statement. His colleague, lawyer Yoon, smiles and remarks that Baek must have been very pleased with that intervention. Baek In-chan falls silent for a moment, deeply pondering his thoughts about the newcomer. He pours more drink into his glass, making a dramatic pause before continuing the conversation. Finally, he looks at his colleague and makes a direct proposal, to permanently incorporate Han Byum-sang into their team. Lawyer Yoon's expression becomes serious upon hearing his boss's surprising offer. Yoon is stunned, remembering that more than 10 years have passed since Baek liked a rookie, and they even had to beg him to hire another lawyer 5 years ago. As he drinks, Yoon marvels that Byum-sang managed to win over the demanding Baek in just 3 months. His amazement turns into overflowing joy, and with tears in his eyes, he exclaims that he is totally in favor of the proposal. Lawyer Yoon, wiping tears of happiness, thinks with relief that his workload will finally become a bit lighter. Suddenly, it occurs to him that they should also consult Han Byum-sang's opinion, an idea that seems to momentarily confuse his boss. Baek In-chan dismisses the concern, confident in the rookie's interest, since he knows Han took home all the maritime law books. With complete confidence, he asserts that Han will accept the offer without hesitation, recalling that he himself acted with the same enthusiasm in his youth. Meanwhile, in his secret dimension, Han Byum-sang proudly stands in front of his most recent acquisition. With an exclamation of pure happiness, he celebrates finally having bought a refrigerator for his workspace. Embracing the appliance, he reflects that with the overwhelming workload of the maritime team, every minute saved, even at meals, is valuable. At that moment, he realizes that his 3-month internship with the maritime team is about to end. The scene shifts back to partner Baek In-chan, who, having made up his mind, gives the order to permanently incorporate Han Byum-sang into the team. On the other end of the line, an executive from the personnel department is completely bewildered by the unexpected and direct instruction. Partner Baek In-chan meets with Lawyer Do from the hiring team to discuss Han Byum-sang's future specifically. Baek states authoritatively that he has decided Han will work for him, but Lawyer Do asks if Byum-sang himself agrees. The partner admits he hasn't yet spoken with the rookie, as his intention was to first discuss the matter with the personnel department. To his surprise, Lawyer Do informs him that since it was within his jurisdiction, he has already spoken with Byum-sang about his future at the firm. With narrowed eyes and a sharp tone, Baek In-chan demands to know the outcome of that conversation. With a panicked expression, Lawyer Do delivers the incredible news. Han Byum-sang has declined the offer. Unable to believe what he hears, the partner murmurs that there must be a mistake. It's impossible that he wouldn't want to join the team. Baek's disbelief turns into pure fury, demanding to know the reason for the rejection of a lawyer who seemed so passionate about maritime law. He shouts that it makes no sense for someone to work so hard only to then reject the opportunity to join the team. The scene rewinds 1 hour, showing Byum-sang in Lawyer Do's office, who informs him that his internship period has officially ended. Lawyer Do tells Byum-sang that the prestigious partner Baek In-chan has shown great interest in him. This raises the implicit question of whether Byum-sang will accept the offer to stay permanently on the maritime team. Surprising the executive, Byum-sang asks if he has the freedom to choose his own path within the firm. Lawyer Do confirms that, of course, he has the right to choose and asks if he has another department in mind. Byum-sang explains that, since it is a crucial decision for his career, he would like to experience other areas before committing. When asked which area he would like to go to, he confidently replies that he wants to gain experience in the international arbitration team. Lawyer Do's expression turns somber, warning him that the arbitration team is a very different and competitive environment. With hands clasped, Byum-sang states with determination that he is fully aware of the challenges ahead. Lawyer Do gives him one last warning, reminding him that if he rejects partner Baek's offer, he might not get a second chance. Despite the pressure, Byum-sang reaffirms his desire to explore different facets of law at Korea's most prominent firm. Back in the flashback, Byum-sang explains to Lawyer Do that sometimes you have to boldly close one door to open a new one. In the present, partner Baek In-chan listens in astonishment to the philosophical reason the rookie gave for rejecting his offer. Despite his frustration, the senior partner seems to grudgingly accept that Byum-sang's personal wishes are also important. Suddenly, Baek bursts into laughter, finding the metaphor about doors ridiculously bold and characteristically Byum-sang. Considering the matter settled, the partner bids farewell to Lawyer Do and leaves his office. Once alone, a thought of disappointment crosses Baek's mind despite his jovial reaction. Meanwhile, at the International Arbitration Team offices, a new message appears on a computer screen. A new, stylish lawyer enters Lawyer Do's office, asking if he had called for her. Lawyer Do gets straight to the point and asks the newcomer if she has heard of a lawyer named Han Byum-sang. She confirms that she has, which makes Lawyer Do wonder if her uncle has already told her about the famous rookie. The lawyer denies that her uncle spoke to her about Sang, despite Lawyer Do's assumption. She asks if Sang will join her team, but Lawyer Do clarifies that he will only be doing a 3-month internship. Do instructs her to assign Sang some simple tasks so he can become familiar with the work, without going into too many details. As she processes the information, the lawyer wonders if the real reason for Sang's transfer is that he couldn't handle the pressure of the maritime team. Days later, Sang shows up with overwhelming enthusiasm before his new colleagues on the international arbitration team. The lawyer from the previous meeting formally introduces herself as Do Ha-young, welcoming him to the team. Do Ha-young begins to orient Sang, checking whether he has already been given the passwords and the location of the files. She asks him for the Westlaw database password, and although he has one from the maritime team, she explains that he will need a new login ID. She tells him that Manager Young can help him with the new access credentials for the international arbitration team. At the end of the orientation, Do Ha-young can't help but think that the famous rookie seems much more ordinary than she expected. To break the ice, Han Sang asks his new colleague, Do Ha-young, if she can recommend a book on practical work. She, beginning to think that he might not be so ordinary after all, asks if he has read the influential books by Professor Suk Gwang-hyo. Sang confirms that he has not only read them, but has also studied the works of lawyer Kim Gap-gyu and several lectures on arbitration practice. Do Ha-young then mentions the Oxford Guide, to which Sang responds that he has also read the work of lawyer Frank. With a humble smile, he admits that despite having read those books 3 times, he still finds it hard to visualize the concepts and was looking for something more. She is stunned to hear that he has read them 3 times, admitting to herself that even she hasn't studied them so diligently. In her mind, the image of an ordinary Sang fades away, and she begins to wonder if he is actually someone exceptional. Just then, a colleague approaches, and Do Ha-young, changing the subject, proceeds to assign Sang the cases he will be working on. The newcomer, lawyer Choi Jae-min, greets Do Ha-young, surprised that her meeting ended so quickly. He comments that his own meeting was faster than expected and looks curiously at the new team member being introduced to him. With a polite bow, the young lawyer formally introduces himself to his new colleague. "Hello, I'm Han Sang." Lawyer Choi Jae-min sizes him up with an analytical look, taking a moment before responding. It is explained that Kim and Kang's international arbitration team is enormous, with 120 people, due to the growing popularity of this legal method. Choi Jae-min reveals the harsh reality of the team. Out of the 120 members, only 30 are considered real staff, while the other 90 are seen as dispensable labor. Extending his hand with a defiant smile, Jae-min confesses to Sang that his situation makes him very curious. As they shake hands, Jae-min's unspoken question hangs in the air. Will Sang be just one of the 90 dispensable, or something more? Despite the tension, Sang maintains a nervous smile as he asks his new colleague to look out for him. The challenge becomes explicit in everyone's mind. The real question is whether Sang has what it takes to be one of the 30 elite members. The imposing Kim and Kong building stands as a reminder of the competitive environment in which they find themselves. The scene shifts to the team's daily routine, where another lawyer assigns an urgent translation task to one of the managers. While lawyer Do Ha-young and her colleague, Michael Byun, discuss a document with manager Young, a new translation task arises. Michael Byun immediately suggests handing the translation work over to the newcomer, lawyer Han. Byun, a Korean-American lawyer, insists that lawyer Choi recommended him for doing quick and error-free work. However, Do Ha-young rejects the suggestion, saying it's better to send the document to the translation center as usual. Michael follows her, complaining and suggesting that they just give the annoying task to Han so they can go eat in peace. As Do Ha-young walks away, annoyed by the way Michael treats others, another lawyer places a nameplate on a door. The lawyer placing the nameplate is surprised to read the name, realizing that it is Han Sang's new office. Do Ha-young, who has overheard the comment, stops and turns around with an unreadable expression on her face. With renewed determination, she turns back and strides firmly towards her colleagues. She confronts Michael Byun, asking him directly if he has just received another request for translation. Do Ha-young approaches Sang's desk and sternly informs him that, as a rule, translation work should be outsourced. She warns him that if he continues to accept such tasks with a passive attitude, he will become the go-to guy for translations. With an innocent expression, Sang excuses himself by saying it just seemed like everyone was very busy and needed help. Frustrated by his naivety, she insists that he must learn to stand up for himself and not let others take advantage of his goodwill. A memory of her own graduation comes to mind, evoking the times they made assumptions about her without knowing her. She recalls the rumors about her family connections, how people labeled her as part of an inner circle before appreciating her ability. Returning to the present, she warns Sang that if he doesn't assert himself, people will ignore his personal effort and only see someone they can overload. Suddenly, she realizes that perhaps she has been too harsh in her reprimand and wonders if she has crossed the line. To her surprise, Sang smiles at her and says he doesn't mind, as he sees the translations as an opportunity to study the background of the cases. He thinks to himself with hidden determination that, for now, he will accept the work, but that he will decline it later when he is busier. Young seriously warns him that his carefree attitude could cost him his job, as he might be fired if he doesn't take things seriously. The narrative advances with a time jump, placing the action 3 months into the future. An assistant enters the office of lawyer Choi Jae-min, one of the main members of the arbitration team. She hands him a report, announcing that it is the quarterly timesheet for the lawyers. It is explained that the timesheet is a detailed record where lawyers log the hours spent on each case in 6-minute increments. This record is crucial, as it not only invoices clients, but also serves for partners to evaluate the performance of their associates. Choi Jae-min begins his review, noting Young's impressive 220 hours before looking for the newcomer's record. After flipping through the file, he finally finds the timesheet belonging to Han Sang. With low expectations, he prepares to review it, thinking that since no cases are assigned, the record should be quite short. However, upon reading the timesheet's content, an expression of absolute disbelief appears on his face. After being summoned, Han Sang cautiously enters lawyer Choi Jae-min's office. Choi Jae-min gestures for him to take a seat, setting the stage for a serious conversation. Sang feels an uncomfortable sense of déjà vu as he sits down, but his superior gets straight to the point, pointing at a huge stack of documents. Jae-min asks him directly if he really translated alone the 83 cases that pile represents. After Sang confirms, his boss expresses astonishment at the figures: 240 hours and 83 cases in just 1 month. The young lawyer admits it was intense work, but adds that he also organized the key facts and issues of each case. The revelation that he has done such thorough additional work leaves his superior completely incredulous. Changing the subject, Jae-min explains that lawyer Byun is sick with COVID and will not be able to attend an important arbitration meeting that afternoon. With a smile that shows his newfound confidence in the rookie, he offers Sang the opportunity to attend the meeting with him. The unexpected offer from his superior leaves Sang speechless, visibly surprised and excited by the opportunity. The meeting takes place in the client company's building, GL Display. During the meeting, the client explains that they believe they could use DXLL company's intellectual property, thanks to a cross-licensing agreement. However, the other party now argues that their claim is invalid due to EU antitrust regulations, leaving the client unsure how to proceed. Lawyer Choi Jae-min outlines a plan. First, they will look for evidence in the official correspondence, then contact DXLL's representative, Allen and Overy, to negotiate. While listening, Sang realizes that arbitration is more complex than just interpreting contracts, and wonders about the precedence of regulatory laws. At the end of the meeting, a car drives away from the building, marking the conclusion of the encounter. Inside the car, Choi Jae-min stretches, exhausted from the meeting, while Sang remains by his side. The senior lawyer asks the rookie if he has understood the content of the meeting well, to which Sang responds affirmatively. Satisfied, Jae-min assigns him his first important task: to draft a follow-up email to Allen and Overy without the need for further meetings. With a look of calm confidence, Han Sang accepts the challenge entrusted to him. Impressed, Choi Jae-min asks Sang to show him the draft of the email once he finishes it. Back in the car, while his superior sleeps, Sang reflects on the simple, yet clever reason why he agreed to do all those translations. Understanding that in his new team, he was like a substitute on the bench, His strategy was to use those tasks to always be ready to step into the game. A feeling of relief washes over him as he sees that his strategy has finally borne fruit. He observes his boss and realizes that, although he seems relaxed, Choi Jae-min is actually a consummate perfectionist. He concludes to himself that, in a way, dealing with Jae-min might be even more difficult than with the formidable partner Baek In-chan. The sun sets on the horizon, painting the sky behind the shining Kim and Kong building. Now at night, lawyer Choi Jae-min continues working in his office, immersed in his tasks. Suddenly, an email notification appears on his screen. It is Han Byum-sang's draft, delivered with surprising speed. As he begins to read the content of the email, a look of deep concentration forms on his face. As he reads, Choi Jae-min reflects that international arbitration is a field that demands extraordinary versatility and improvisational skill. He is surprised to discover that Byum-sang's draft already includes all the points he himself had planned to add later. Impressed by the quality of the work, he lifts the handset of his phone with a new idea in mind. He calls his secretary and, after a brief greeting, prepares to give her an important instruction. With determination, he asks her to make a change in the assignment of one of the pending cases. The scene shifts to explain that the saying, "time is money," is a literal reality for lawyers at major firms. The principle of profit distribution in the legal industry is detailed, based on a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio among costs, the firm, and the lawyer. From the income generated by a case, a portion is allocated to cover costs and another becomes the firm's profit. The remaining part constitutes the associate lawyer's earnings, meaning their income depends directly on the number of cases they handle. This implies that to reach the target of 180 hours per month, lawyers are inevitably sensitive to the amount of work assigned to them. Lawyer Michael Byun explodes with rage upon learning of the case reassignment, shouting that it is complete nonsense. He continues his tantrum in the break room, complaining that they took away a case from him just because he stepped away from his desk for a moment. Someone tells him that the bastard Han took one of his cases, and another colleague adds that Han took one from him as well. A third lawyer, visibly worried, expresses disbelief at the surprising situation. Byun immediately assumes that Byum-sang could only have done this because he's a connected guy with important contacts. The concerned colleague doesn't know what to say, sweating nervously because of the tense moment. Byun argues that it's impossible for Byum-sang's hours to be real, since all Byum-sang did for 3 months was translate. The lawyers begin to doubt whether Byum-sang actually did all that work, speculating that he must have done it at home since no one saw him working overtime. To top off his disdain, Byun adds that he's even heard Byum-sang's pronunciation isn't good enough to be a foreign lawyer. In the distance, Do Ha-young, who has heard the whole conversation, remains silent with a thoughtful expression. Holding a coffee, Do Ha-young stifles a laugh as she listens to her gossiping colleagues. She walks away indifferently, leaving the lawyers confused by her reaction. One of the lawyers notices Michael Byun's condition. He is red with anger and embarrassment after the argument. With a satisfied smile, Do Ha-young thinks that her colleagues deserve that frustration for having underestimated Byum-sang as a mere favorite. She knows that lawyer Choi is an extremely meritocratic boss who would never give preferential treatment without a good reason. This leaves her wondering what kind of magic Byum-sang used to win the favor of such a demanding superior. The scene changes completely, showing the exterior of an IKEA furniture store. Inside the store, Byum-sang's friend looks incredulous at the amount of furniture they plan to buy, doubting it will fit in his small attic. Byum-sang responds thoughtfully that the attic is actually bigger than it seems, leaving his friend even more confused. In a flashback, it is revealed that the furniture is for his chaotic pocket dimension, which he urgently needs to organize in order to work. While Byum-sang helps his friend Ki-dong with the shopping, he thanks him, confessing that since his daughter was born, there is never enough time. With an expression of pure happiness, Ki-dong adds that despite the fatigue, seeing his little girl's face makes everything in life worthwhile. Changing the subject playfully, his friend asks if there are no attractive employees at his prestigious law firm. The sudden question catches Byum-sang off guard, and the image of lawyer Do Ha-young unexpectedly appears in his mind. Confused by his own reaction, he wonders why he thought of her, which causes his friend to tease him, suspecting there's someone special. Ki-dong suggests that now that he has a good job, he should start seriously thinking about marriage. Byum-sang dismisses the idea immediately, provoking an exaggerated and playful reaction from his friend. His friend gets excited and proposes a couple's trip to Jeju Island, to which Sang reminds him that he doesn't even have a girlfriend. Later, reflecting alone, Sang admits to himself that marriage still feels like a very distant story. However, as he imagines a future, he thinks it would be wonderful to one day share the secret of his pocket dimension with his own family. The idea of starting a family raises a shocking question. Could other living beings, besides himself, enter his pocket dimension? Back in the tranquility of his home, the sun sets, marking the end of the day and the beginning of a new phase in his secret space. Inside the pocket dimension, Sang celebrates having finished assembling all the new furniture he bought. The space, once chaotic, now resembles a small and tidy personal library, which fills him with satisfaction. With everything organized, a drop of sweat rolls down his temple as he wonders what his next step should be. His gaze turns toward the vast darkness of space, and he discovers with amazement a mysterious door that has appeared out of nowhere. The narration explains that, once space stopped expanding, instead of growing further, that enigmatic door materialized. He admits that, since it appeared, a whole week has passed with him internally debating whether he should dare to open it. Fear still paralyzes him as he wonders if it is safe to cross the threshold and what he might find on the other side. This fear connects to a deep trauma, and he wonders if his father, who disappeared long ago, might have met the same fate. After a week of deliberation, Sang takes a step back, still undecided in front of the enigmatic door. However, his expression hardens with new resolve, deciding that he can no longer keep doubting. With determination, he grabs the knob, vowing to himself that, even if he can't now, someday he will manage to open that door. The moment his hand makes contact, the door emits a blinding glow, as if responding to his will. His mind floods with the overwhelming possibility of what he might find on the other side. The dominant thought is the hope of reuniting with the father he has desperately missed every day. He clutches his head, aware that he cannot erase that powerful hope from his mind. When he looks back toward where the door was, his eyes open in total and absolute confusion. He stands frozen upon discovering that the door which had consumed his thoughts for a week has completely disappeared. In the middle of his pocket dimension, now empty once again, he wonders if this is the end of the expansion and what the purpose of the door was. After the door's disappearance, surprise floods Sang's eyes as a new possibility crosses his mind. Intrigued, he crouches down and touches the floor of the pocket dimension, noticing that the texture has completely changed. He takes a handful of the ground with his hand, feeling an earthy and unfamiliar consistency beneath his fingers. Upon examining it closely, he realizes with amazement that what he holds in his hand is real soil. The confirmation that the floor of his magical space is now fertile soil opens up a world of new possibilities. He connects the dots and wonders if the change in the floor is related to the fact that the room stopped expanding. A brilliant idea lights up in his mind as he comprehends the implications of this new discovery. Immediately, he decides to initiate an experiment and gathers the necessary gardening tools. With a satisfied smile, he contemplates the result of his work. He has planted scallions in a pot filled with the dimension's soil. He knows that if those scallions grow, it will be the definitive proof that life can be cultivated and perhaps sustained within his secret space. Before leaving his secret dimension, Sang says goodbye to the green onions he planted, wishing them healthy growth. A close-up shows the small green shoots emerging from the soil, marking the beginning of his important experiment. The scene shifts to lawyer Choi Jae-min's office, where he impatiently reviews a September calendar. He wonders aloud why an important document is being delayed so much. The cause of his frustration is that the opinion letter from the Allen and Overy firm has been 2 weeks late without any explanation. Finally, he manages to contact his counterpart at the other firm by phone to request an update. He asks his colleague if they can deliver the report on sanctions against GL Display by the next morning, Korean time. To his complete surprise, the person on the other end replies that this will be difficult, leaving Jae-min speechless. The excuse they give is that they are still waiting for additional documents, which only confuses the lawyer further. At that moment of highest tension, Sang appears at the door of his office, summoned by his superior. Lawyer Choi Jae-min, with tense calm, asks both his colleagues to take a seat in his office. Those summoned are Sang and Michael Byun, both showing nervous expressions on their faces. Jae-min explains the reason for the meeting. The Allen and Ovary opinion letter is 2 weeks overdue, and he has decided to investigate the cause. He addresses Byun directly, asking if it is true that he received a request for additional documents from the other firm. He clarifies that the request was to obtain the full text of emails with the Korean branch to determine legal responsibility. He specifies that it was an email file of about 500 pages. Michael Byun's face turns pale as he grasps the gravity of the situation and where the conversation is headed. Jae-min begins to talk about how things can get lost during task handovers, but Byun interrupts him desperately. In an attempt to save himself, Byun directly blames Sang, claiming he had passed the task on to him. With a nervous smile, Byun insists that he made sure to communicate the task to Han separately after the case was assigned. Choi Jae-min turns to Sang and asks why he has not sent the documents yet, to which a bewildered Han replies that he had never heard of it. A flashback reveals the moment when Byun mentioned the task casually and in passing, causing Sang not to give it the importance it deserved. Upon hearing his name, Sang is startled, realizing that Byun's lack of urgency in tone had completely deceived him. Embarrassed by the oversight, the young lawyer lowers his head, unsure of what to say. He apologizes, explaining that since it was a large amount of material, he planned to review it later, thereby taking responsibility for the mistake. With a look full of determination, Sang makes a bold promise. He will finish the work and send it the same day before the London market closes. His superior, Choi Jae-min, is surprised that he is willing to take on such a workload but accepts his proposal. In an official tone, he gives Sang the green light to start working on the task immediately. After Sang leaves the room, a tense and heavy silence settles between Choi Jae-min and a visibly nervous Michael Byun. Jae-min finally breaks the silence, calling Byun by name with a cold voice that foreshadows trouble. Choi Jae-min begins his reprimand of Michael Byun, sarcastically asking if he plans to leave the firm to open his own practice. Byun is left speechless, frozen by his superior's cold fury. Jae-min slams the table with a stack of documents and warns Byun that he does not care if he speaks badly about him behind his back. With a piercing gaze, he finishes his warning, ordering him not to dare interfere with his cases again. Completely intimidated, Byun can only lower his head and offer a stammered apology. To top off the humiliation, Jae-min slips him the file for the GL display case, now handled by Han, telling him to take care of it as well. In his mind, Jae-min reflects that an incompetent, connected person is not a threat, but one who is also capable, like Han, is cause for concern. Meanwhile, Sang leaves the office at the end of the day, exhaling a sigh of pure exhaustion. He arrives home, or at his destination, and drops his briefcase with no strength left. Loosening his tie, he reflects that in situations like the one he just experienced, arguing over who is right or not is completely useless. Overwhelmed by the pressure from his new boss, Sang feels like he is being watched constantly. He decides to put aside the office intrigues and focuses on his only priority, solving the problem he has at hand. Wrapped in the aura of his secret dimension, he enters the time room, convinced that proving his worth will clear up any doubts. The next morning, lawyer Choi Jae-min arrives at his office and begins his workday. He is surprised to find an email from Han Sang with additional documents, sent at 6 in the morning. As he starts reviewing the work, he can't help but marvel at the rookie's incredible translation speed. While skimming through the extensive document, he confirms that not only was it fast, but all the details seem to be correct. Impressed, he leans back in his chair, completely reconsidering his opinion about the surprising lawyer Han. With renewed resolve, he takes his briefcase, ready to take action. He heads straight to Michael Byun's desk, calling him for a conversation that promises to be serious. Lawyer Choi Jae-min appears before the senior partner of the international arbitration team, Song Il-yong. With a grim expression, Jae-min informs his superior that a serious problem has arisen at the firm. Meanwhile, in the conference room, a murmur of confusion spreads among the lawyers as they witness a sudden commotion. Han Sang, unaware of the situation, asks a colleague what is happening. His co-worker whispers the incredible gossip in his ear. It's about a lover's escape. It is revealed that one of the junior partners and an associate lawyer fell in love and ran away together. The story goes that when their relationship became unsustainable, the couple simply packed their bags and disappeared without a trace. Jae-min explains that as a result, All the cases of the runaway lawyer have fallen onto their team. The senior partner, unfazed, orders his secretary to bring all the files of the abandoned cases. The team members watch in horror as a mountain of new files is carried into their room, wondering how many cases they've been assigned. Lawyer Choi Jae-min gathers the team, informing them that he has summoned them for a specific case and that tasks will be assigned individually. He reveals that the entire card of documents pertains to a single case, the explosion at the KLS energy plant in Michigan. He informs them that they have 1 week to organize the settlement situation and create a presentation for Monday's meeting at KLS headquarters. After asking if there are any questions, Jae-min ends the meeting and orders everyone to start working immediately. Night falls over the Kim and Kong building, but the office lights remain on, indicating a long workday. Two lawyers complain about exhaustion and frustration, since even the fees have not been set for the overwhelming KLS case. Han Byum-sang, overwhelmed, looks at the mountain of documents and wonders how it is possible to process such a volume of information in just 1 week. The background of the case is explained: a devastating explosion at a large battery manufacturing plant in Michigan. The incident caused 5 deaths and 38 injuries, and it was determined that the cause was the chemicals used in the batteries. The main legal issue lies in the fact that the plant is a joint venture between the Korean KLS Energy and the American automaker MG. The problem worsens when MG, the American partner, suddenly denies all responsibility for the disaster. With the victims' families demanding justice, the client, KLS Energy, needs the matter resolved before it escalates further. In the solitude of his pocket dimension, Han Byum-sang immerses himself in studying the overwhelming volume of case documents. The task is titanic. Although the main agreement is 180 pages, the total case documentation exceeds 10,000 pages. The law firm's goal is to find, in that sea of papers, the maximum responsibility of MG, a mission almost impossible with only a week to do it. As he studies the agreement, Byum-sang discovers that the liability assignment clause is drafted very unfavorably for his client. His attention focuses on the entire agreement clause, which nullifies any negotiation or prior agreement before the final contract. This clause means that the contract is the only legally binding agreement, which seems like a dead end. However, with a sharpened gaze, Byum-sang understands that such a restrictive clause must be examined with even greater intensity. He understands that, if he delves deeply enough into the text, there are always grounds to prove rights and responsibilities. Immersed in his work, Byum-sang has a moment of clarity, realizing that connecting certain documents will create the evidence he needs. The focus of his research is the bulky files from the KLS energy plant explosion case. Driven by his discovery, he throws himself back into work with renewed energy, shouting, "Let's go!" After countless hours of effort, exhaustion overcomes him, and he falls asleep on the books at his desk. Upon waking, he finds himself disoriented by an intense light, wondering if it is already daytime and why he doesn't remember falling asleep outside. His eyes open wide with surprise as he processes the incredible brightness surrounding him. He jumps up, completely stunned by the blinding light that now floods his secret dimension entirely. He remembers that he has been adding gold to the safe in hopes of triggering new changes in the room. Covering his eyes, he realizes the unthinkable. Dawn has arrived inside his pocket dimension. Standing under this new sun, he understands that life could thrive here, and he wonders if his father ever saw this very same sun. Despite the astonishing sun in his dimension, Byum-sang forces himself to concentrate, reminding himself that he must finish his work first. After falling asleep from exhaustion, he wakes up on his papers and struggles to decipher the content he was studying. Suddenly, something in the documents catches his attention, and he comes to an abrupt stop. A crucial discovery in the case files leaves him with an expression of surprise and intrigue. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight herald a new workday at the law firm. Attorney Do Ha-young arrives at the office very early, pleased to find it empty at that hour. She complains about the exhausting KLS case, admitting she barely managed to skim through the documents all weekend. She decides to review again a card of documents she had prepared the night before. To her surprise, she realizes that the pile of documents that was on the card has disappeared. Approaching, she finds only the empty cart next to some footprints on the floor, indicating someone has already been there. Desperate, Do Ha-young frantically searches the bookshelf, wondering if attorney Choi really left the files there. Finding nothing, she begins to think that perhaps someone else has taken the important case documents. Just at that moment, Han Byum-sang arrives at the office and asks if she is looking for something. She turns to him and asks about the KLS case records that attorney Choi supposedly left in the room. With a calm smile, Byum-sang explains that he took the documents home the night before to give them one last review. He informs her that he has them stored in his briefcase and can get them out immediately, much to his colleague's astonishment. Do Ha-young stands frozen, unable to believe that he took home all those records and reviewed them in a single night. As she looks out the window, overwhelmed by the feat, she wonders what kind of person Han Byum-sang really is. A close-up shows the perfectly organized documents, proof of Byum-sang's incredible overnight work. The scene shifts to Choi Jae-min's office, where he sighs stressed as he realizes how little time remains before the meeting and how much still needs to be prepared. Lawyer Choi Jae-min, feeling pressured, wonders why he suddenly needs to understand so many details. Han Byum-sang enters his office, but his stressed boss tells him he's busy and to talk later. Byum-sang leaves a document on his desk, explaining that it contains the problems he found while reviewing the KLS case over the weekend. Just as Jae-min is about to dismiss him, another colleague bursts into the office to warn him he must leave immediately for a meeting. Hurriedly gathering his things, Jae-min tells Byum-sang to go and that he will review his report later. However, in an unexpected twist, as he rushes out, he takes the document that Byum-sang just handed him. A satisfied smile spreads across Byum-sang's face as he sees his boss has taken his work with him. Choi Jae-min walks away with Byum-sang's report in hand, which details the liability issues in the KLSMG agreement.